What's up, friends? It's Davin, and I'm back for another episode of the Free Your Voice, Free Your Life podcast. So much has transpired since the last episode, and so I'm really excited to unpack some of that with you. But I wanted to start out by saying that I've been getting a number of messages from people telling me that this podcast is a good companion. It keeps them company in a way. And I just want to say that means the world to me. I'm really grateful for that because I have my podcast companions, the people that I listen to, that I routinely go to for, company, but also inspiration. And so if I can offer you just even a little bit of that on your creative voice, authentic journey, I'm really happy to be able to do so. So thanks to those of you who are listening. Thanks to those of you who have been listening for a while. Thanks to those of you who send this to other people so that they might be able to find inspiration and growth and hopefully healing and transformation in the words that I'm offering. So yeah, thank you. It means a lot. And also, if you ever want to connect with me further, by all means, email me. IAM at davinyoungs.com or connect with me on Instagram at davinyoungs. I want to be in relationship with you. I want to be in connection with you. I want to take you along on my journey, and I want to help inspire yours. And so I hope that we can just be in communication and connection together. Okay, with that being said, I want to share with you about the two most recent performance experiences that I had because they were a big deal and I learned so much, and they actually inspired the topic that I want to share with you today around... Well, I'm just going to let you have it now. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome. And I learned some things about myself through these experiences as it relates to that theme of imposter syndrome. But let me just start by saying the first thing I did was to perform at the Ravinia Festival. I brought the Reset, my immersive sound healing experience. If you're not familiar, you can check out the resetsoundexperience.com. But I brought this to Ravinia, which, if you've been following my journey, you might know that Ravinia was my very first job out of college. It was somewhere I worked administratively during a time in my life where I was lost creatively. So it was really emotional and significant for me to be able to go back to this space 20 years later, literally 20 years later, with, a more authentic version of myself, a more fully realized version of myself, leading with my creativity, leading with what's bringing me the most joy in my life right now. And man, it felt good. It felt so good to just even drive my car up there and unload my stuff. And yeah, it was a really beautiful experience. I have to say, though, I wanted to share with you. So a couple things I learned. One, and we're going to talk about this more when we talk about imposter syndrome. But when you perform at a venue like Ravinia, the aid that is available to you is more significant. And I've spent a lot of years doing what I call schlepping shit, which is a bit of a tongue twister. But, when you're a gigging musician, when you bring your music out into the world, you get used to like hauling things everywhere and just like setting it all up. And anyway, so I get out of my car at Ravinia and I'm just reminded right away that someone was there to help me and they wanted to help me carry my things onto the stage. And I had so much self-consciousness around this. I actually refused the help at first. And this is something I'm learning about myself, but I just share that with you for a number of different reasons. One is just to say that it's such a lovely experience to have grown into this place where I would be able to perform and get that sort of support and aid, and that people would want to help me realize my vision, and I don't have to be the sort of singular driving force behind making it happen, and such a great experience. But also there's a period of adjustment around that, and there's some self-consciousness that comes up about worthiness. And I have to say that the Ravinia experience in particular, the venue is outside, and I was pretty nervous. The feedback that I'm able to get, I'm able to hear myself through the monitors, but usually I'm also sort of monitoring myself in the space, listening acoustically, ambient noise in the space. And doing this outside, I wasn't given that, sort of luxury. But that's a part of what it is to perform outside. But there was a beautiful audience there, and they showed up, and so many people I love came, and there was so much support and so much love. But then in the midst of it all, I had this beautiful sound check. Everything got set up. The stage looked great. But in the midst of it all, when I start going, there were some major technical issues. The sound system was what's called clipping. So my audio was like maxing out the decibels that the system could handle, and that leads to the sound being broken. Sounds like it breaks or whatever. And I heard this really early on, and it sort of set a panic off in my body because if the whole premise of what I'm doing is to lead people into a soothing, beautiful sound healing experience, and some of the first sounds they hear are this broken, clipping noise, not what I wanted. And so, full disclosure, like, I spent the rest of the time trying to figure out how to manage that. I was like shifting microphones. I was doing everything that I could possibly think of, and it got me in my head. And the good news is I believe I was still able to give a really lovely experience, and I got a lot of positive feedback. But man, I learned a lot about my capacity to hold complicated situations in the midst of performance, and I did a good job. I felt really pleased with myself in that area. And also, though, just like some things that I need to check off technically before, like I thought I had all the pieces in place, but you have to have fail safes. You have to have plan Bs in these situations, because that's how technology works. That's how the variabilities of any given situation, that's what they'll present to you. And so anyway, I just learned a lot. My disappointment was that I wasn't able to be as present as I wanted to be to fully enjoy the experience in the way that I wanted to. I guess if we're doing like rose and thorn, that's my thorn. But my rose was that I rose to the challenge. And I was able to create a really, I think, still a beautiful experience that people enjoyed in a limited way. And I had someone there helping me. My friend Jeff Quay brought some beautiful sounds on percussion and various instruments, and that was a saving grace too. He really was able to fill space for me when I was struggling to get things in order. So anyway, all of that to say, it was a great experience. I am so grateful for the support that I received, and I'm grateful for the struggles because I learned a lot, and I'm grateful that the struggles didn't sort of do me in the moment. Okay, 2 weeks later, I go to Nashville. Nashville Symphony Orchestra, Schermerhorn Symphony Center. I was nervous about this performance because this is the first time I've taken the reset to this scale of a performance in a city where I really don't know anyone. And, the big question mark is, are people going to buy tickets? I mean, that's the truth. It's like, I'm very confident in my ability to create a good experience. I'm confident that if people are there, they'll walk away and they'll go, wow, that was cool. I'm not confident. I haven't been confident. Let me change my language. I haven't been confident in my ability to turn out a crowd in a place that people don't know me. And can I just tell you, we turned out a crowd. In fact, it was the biggest crowd I've ever turned out. In fact, a week before the experience, they were sold out of the spots that were like the laying down spots. And the thing about this hall, y'all, it's so special. It's so special. It's so old, but it's so acoustically amazing. And the main floor is flat, and the seats, they go underground. And so they were able to turn like the whole main floor into this open area where people could lay down. And then on the stage, people were able to lay down with me as well. But then, because it sold out a week in advance, they decided to open up like regular traditional seating, and we sold 150 more tickets of traditional seating, which blew my mind. And so I was just thrilled that people were meeting this with curiosity and like sort of this exuberant response. And I don't know. I guess I walked away from Ravinia feeling like I learned a lot, and I felt really, really confident that this experience in Nashville was going to be amazing. I just knew it. I knew it in my heart, and it was. It was so beautiful. And the thing that I wasn't able to do at Ravinia was sort of be present and be out of my thinking mind and be in my body. And in Nashville, I was so in my body. I felt so good as a performer. I felt like I delivered on all levels. Like I was able to create the sounds that I wanted. My voice showed up. I was able to use the words that I wanted. I felt present in my body. I was able to make eye contact with people and just like be in the hall and really truly enjoy the experience. And I got to push myself into new territory. And I got so much positive love and feedback. And I'm sure there were some people that didn't enjoy it, and God bless them, but so many people gave me so much love and so many hugs. And it just really was, I don't know. I've never experienced anything like it before. And it felt like I stepped into the vision that I've had. That was it. That was it. It really was. When I think about, how I've imagined this going down, that was it. It was it. And so now I have this proof of concept, and now I'm like, I've got to take this more in more places. And I had a great photographer who took beautiful images, which you can find on my social media. If you go to YouTube, Davin Youngs, youtube.com/Davin Youngs, you'll find a video that he also took. His name's Matt Ledo, Leddo. If ever you're in Nashville and want to hire someone to take photos or video, he did a great job. But yeah, I don't know. It's everything I talk about. It felt really good. And I just walked away from it feeling really good and satisfied and proud of myself and connected. And I also had some support from a local sound healer named Casey Lane, who does a lot with singing bowls. And yeah, she was a great support. And I'm just so, so, so grateful. So August 10th and 11th, I'll be at Blumenthal Arts. Specifically, the theater is called the Booth Theater in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'll be bringing the Reset. It's going to be really another sick experience there, because we're going to be creating this under this giant globe by the artist Luke Jerram. It's literally a replica of the Earth. It's called Gaia. It's super special. And then August 24th, I'll be at Betcher Hall, where the Colorado Symphony Orchestra plays in Denver. And I've every belief that these two experiences will build on the momentum of Nashville, and they will be really beautiful and powerful and connecting. And I don't know, I'm really pleased, and I'm scared because I want this to keep moving, and I'm trying to balance just trusting the momentum and trusting the energy and trusting that once you've attracted this sort of abundance, that you can attract more. But, full disclosure, my mind wants to go down paths where it goes, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the only thing you'll do. Maybe you won't get to do it again. And that's the game. That's what I'm bumping up against. So I share that in an effort to just be vulnerable in my own journey. But I wanted to share with you a little bit about this idea of imposter syndrome, because it's something that I told you a few minutes ago that I have been bumping up against in a way that maybe I hadn't in the past. But I think it's something we can all relate to. And there are just a couple of awarenesses. There are some things that I've become aware of around it that I wanted to share with you that might help you in your journey. If I look back at my own path, in pretty much every area of my life, whenever I'm beginning something new, or even if I've been doing something for a long time, but I have certain types of aspirations around it, one of the questions that comes up for me is around legitimacy. I remember early on in my voice coaching work where I was working independently, and part of that was because I didn't feel a strong call to sort of approach doing that kind of work through some of the systems or institutions that others might do it. But I remember early on feeling routinely like I wouldn't be allowed into situations, or wouldn't be seen a certain way, or wouldn't be accepted at certain events because I didn't have the credentials that would affirm my legitimacy to certain people. Because I was playing by different rules, it felt like I don't know, like I wouldn't get access to certain things. I say that to you because this term imposter syndrome, it's not always been something that I've connected with personally. Um, but as I have been reflecting, I think there are ways in which it's shown up for me with different language. And so I just wanted to offer that to you, that there are ways in which I see this show up for others where they find themselves in situations and they look for reasons to explain to themselves their sense of uh, or their lack of legitimacy, their lack of worth, their lack of value that would allow them in. Now, we all experience this on some level, but we experience it most often. We will experience it most often when we're early on in something. Because when you're trying something new and you're learning something new and you show up to do something new, you maybe don't have the experiences that will affirm that you are able or welcome to show up fully in that space or that place, or lay stake to the claim that you have ownership or authority on that. And I actually think that there's some health in the humility that offers, of showing up and being like, I'm not sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do this, because there's a freedom that actually can come with that as well. But where this can become problematic for me and for you is when that narrative lingers past its due date. When you start to get more experience and you start to have proof of concept and you start to get affirming feedback on whatever it is that you're pursuing, and yet you still fall into the trap of the story that you don't belong, that you don't matter as much as others, that you don't have the appropriate credentials, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you've been listening to me for a while, you've likely heard me say this before, but this kind of narrative, this fear-based narrative, always first and foremost clings to what I call like the lowest common denominator factors. So that generally means you're going to think to yourself, I don't belong here, or I'm not wanted here because I don't look a certain way. I'm too old. My body isn't right. It's not the acceptable body to be here. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough experience. I don't have the appropriate credentials. You name it. You get it? Those are sort of like baseline, rational reasons that one would or wouldn't be accepted in a certain space, place, doing what it is that they do. Now, I say that to you to say that I hope in your mind, when you catch yourself going, I'm too old, I don't look right, I don't have the right look, my body's not right, I don't have enough, I didn't go to school for this. I hope you'll hear that and be able to start to identify that quickly as that imposter syndrome bullshit. Because that's what it is. It's firmly bullshit. But it's what our fear-based mind wants to do when we don't have a felt sense of safety in our bodies. Now, I want to talk more about the mindset of this in a bit, and I want to share some personal experiences, but I also want to make sure that we're very clear about one thing, because a lot of the prominent voices you'll hear in self-help, healing, goal accomplishment, moving toward our own flourishing, they'll overemphasize the mindset part of this. And don't get me wrong, I think the mindset is so big. But it's important to know where the mindset begins. Where does it originate? And it always originates in an experience in your body. See, your nervous system is always tracking every situation you're in for safety. And it's doing it at a level that sits beneath consciousness or beneath rationality, let's say that. You walk into a room, your body's clocking the cues around whether the space is safe or not. And those cues that it's reading are based on previous experiences, a lot of times from early on in life. And what happens is we look for negative reinforcement, right? So you go, that person's weird, and then you see them do one weird thing and you're like, see, I told you that's how it is. And that reinforces this story that we have about ourselves. Where this becomes problematic is the story. It's actually brilliant and beautiful that our bodies behave this way, but it's problematic that we lean too far into the story, the thinking, the narrative that can lead us down a path of believing a lack of safety when we don't actually know the full story. And this is why imposter syndrome is so problematic, because it assumes that you know more than you do. Imposter syndrome assumes that you know outcome. It assumes that you have a crystal ball that you can see into, and that you know the totality of people's reactions to things, or you know their expectations of you. And usually it assumes that you know those things without actually have been communicated with about any of them. This is where it becomes really tricky for us as humans to sort of sort through the thinking that comes with this. But I want to make it really clear that whenever you step into something new, you should question the safety of it. The problem with that is that the safety, the threat of a lack of safety, might not mean death. And that's what it can feel like in the moment, right? When you step into something new and you're like, I don't know if I'm qualified for this. I don't know if I belong here. In our body's experience, the alternative would be that we might end up dying, that our livelihood is threatened in some way. Like, not necessarily that someone's going to shoot us or kill us, but if I don't have access to this, I might not be able to make money. I might not be able to be liked by, my tribe, the people around me. I might be rejected. I might never be able to recover from this. There are all sorts of stories like that tend to creep in. And again, they are a normal thinking process or thinking pattern around stepping into something new and different and unexpected and something you haven't done before. But our ability to sort through those stories is everything. And this is where I just believe meditation is at the center of an efficient path to growth, because one of the things that meditation offers is the ability to be more discerning and see clearly about our relationship to our thoughts. If I can cultivate the capacity to be aware of my thoughts, I can then simply ask myself, is that true? And then respond accordingly. And then as a result, too, I might be able to engage practices that help alleviate some of the dysregulation of my nervous system, help regulate my nervous system, help tone the vagus nerve, help calm my body. And some of those practices are so simple. They could be as simple as humming. They could be as simple as what's called the physiological sigh, which is where you take one deep breath in, take another deep breath at the top, and then slowly breathe out through the mouth. Do you feel that difference in me just doing that right there? It's a great nervous system regulation tool. There are many, many, many opportunities to use systems like that. Also, if you're interested, check out Deb Dana's book, Anchored. There are great tools in Deb Dana's book, Anchored, around regulating the nervous system. But if I can just see my thinking clearly, I might know that it connects back to a felt sense of a lack of safety in my body. I might be able to learn to regulate my nervous system and then sort better through the stories. And I might be even able to choose a narrative, choose a story that knows my success, that knows my safety, that knows my ability to overcome. The imposter syndrome assumes that you don't have that capacity. It's always looking for someone else, something else outside of you to affirm you. It's never content with the story that can come from within, which is how you know it's not true. Because the story that can come from within, that's connected to your inner being, that deep knowing that we've talked about before, that is your truth. Imposter syndrome always clings first and foremost to the lowest common denominator. It always comes back to self-consciousness around, I don't have a piece of paper that says I can do this. I don't look a specific way. I don't sound a specific way, etc., etc. I see this play out a lot of times with singers on their singing journey as I'm doing coaching with them. One of the ways in which I hear this come up quickly is when I hear someone searching for the style that they want to sing in. A lot of times people will say, I really need to figure out my style, my genre. And while I understand the thought process behind that, as a creator, as a maker, I want to just offer that that's sort of a futile effort. That the people that create things that are new, the people that lean far into real growth and change and transformation, they're not trying to land on something specific, like a style or a genre. They're trying to find more freedom in their own personal expression. And what happens as a result of that is something new comes forth. The style emerges. And it might be a style that's connected to something they've heard before, or it might be something that they could have never imagined or planned. See, that desire to find your style is coming from a place of feeling like you wouldn't be legitimate until you have like a clear POV in that regard. And what I want to tell you is I just have never observed that that's how it works. The other thing about style is that it's constantly shifting and changing and growing. And the people that I admire most as artists, they don't stick to one style. They just keep changing and growing as themselves. And this is part of what allows us to continue to change and grow too as we engage with their work. And that might mean that we become less interested in their work, or it might mean that we are able to become more interested. But I think about an artist like that I admire, like someone like Tom York. And I think about how Tom York has always just been so Tom York, but everything that's happened around the music that he creates, it's been so complicated and wonderful and strange and weird. And that is what's allowed him to do what he's done for so long. Or think about an artist like Madonna. I mean, how many different styles has Madonna landed on and experimented with and explored with? And that's why she has had the longevity that she's had. So imagine if to start things off, she would have said, I have to figure out my style. Now, she may have thought that, but it's a very limiting way to think. And I just haven't observed that it's that useful. So when you find yourself clinging to, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure out how to fall into this category, this genre. I've got to be able to be seen or known like this. Just know that that's an alert. Take that as a moment of pause to consider. Now, the other thing that I hear all the time, especially in my coaching work, is when people will say, well, I didn't go to school for this. And not to be rude, but that makes me roll my eyes. Because once you get just a little perspective on how the world works, particularly when it comes to creativity, art, music, singing, you recognize that while school is a wonderful place to gain knowledge, experience, understanding, community, I mean, don't get me wrong, I can't recommend school enough. It's also not the thing that, I don't know, turns the dial for a lot of people. There are many, many people that I went to conservatory with that are not performing. They're not making music. They're not creating. And there are industries full of creative people that never touched an academic institution, and they are crushing it. I think that while the desire to learn is always good, and while the desire to pursue more learning is always good, whenever I hear someone say, I didn't go to school for this, what I hear is that imposter syndrome, that quest for legitimacy. Or when you see someone doing something and you just have this belief that they had this magical set of circumstances that have put them in the position to be able to do that, and that you will not ever have access to those circumstances. It's not true. It's not true. Are people privileged? Yes. Are some people hindered by their circumstances? Yes. Are there exceptions to all of that? Yes, 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 yes. We see it all the time. So that imposter syndrome, remember, it's always looking for the lowest common denominator. It's always seeking legitimacy, and that legitimacy is always attempted to be found outside of oneself, by an institution, by a people group, by an objective sort of source. And I just want you to know that your life is not objective. Your life is subjective. And that's the beauty. That's why you can show up totally delusional, doing something new with some fear, but also a profound confidence, because it's you doing it. And you're the first person to have ever done it this way because it's you. That's the bottom line. No one else could do this like you because it's you. No one else is you. And however much experience you lack, you won't gain it by pursuing something that isn't you. You only gain it in those moments where you show up unapologetically as yourself. Now, I told you when I was unpacking my stuff at Ravinia and the guys were like wanting to help me pull it out of the car, and I turned them down. Really, at the heart of that was I didn't feel worthy. I felt awkward. I felt strange. I have a hard time letting people do things for me. I'm used to doing it all on my own. It's uncomfortable for me. And it really sort of immediately tapped into that legitimacy aspect of the work. I see that in myself. So then I went to Nashville. And in Nashville, I was actually way more scared than at Ravinia because we had a bigger audience. There were a lot more people there. They didn't know me. They had taken a risk to sign up to come to this thing that they weren't even sure what it was. And I was able to clock some of these feelings within myself and just reminded myself that what I give them, what I bring them, will be something that they have never experienced before and won't ever be able to experience again, because it's specific to me and this moment. And this moment is a culmination of my life's experience. I am uniquely qualified to show up as me in this moment. And when I don't question my legitimacy, when I don't question my worth, when I cultivate felt sense of safety in my body, when I do my practices, when I meditate, when I remind myself of the vision that I have for myself, when I remind myself of the vision I have for the participants in the audience, when I connect to the inner being, the inner knowing, when I really do that, I'm guaranteed success. Guaranteed. It might not look exactly like I imagine, but the likelihood of it being that increases dramatically, and my ability and willingness to connect with others increases exponentially. And that's really what this whole thing is about. Your creativity, your voice, your ability as a performer, your humanity is rooted in connection, is rooted in the reminder of the interconnectedness of all beings. And when you go into a space and you have this fear, and then that fear manifests in a story about your worth and your value and how you probably shouldn't be accepted here, you probably don't belong, you are creating separation. You are perpetuating the myth of separation, I should say. There's actually no such thing as separation. So you are perpetuating this myth that, my friend, it's a waste of energy. It's a waste of energy. You are here on this earth to create and to make and to connect. And when you do the work to pull down the barriers, you're going to feel so good. And you are going to walk into every space with a deep humility, knowing that there's no legitimacy that you could achieve. You will never have achieved enough. You won't have enough papers. You won't have enough power. You won't have enough experience. You only will have what you have right now. And that's what you're called to show up with. Exactly how you are. You don't have to sing in a certain style. You don't have to be able to hit a certain note. One quick side note about this too, here's another way in which I think imposter syndrome shows up. When I work with singers and we're working on a song and they insist upon singing it in the original key, even though they can't sing it in the original key, they are assuming that song, that they will only be legitimate in singing that song if they can do it like this. And I got to tell you, thank God we've been given the ability to change keys, because you can't sing every key. You might need to lower the key. And if you do so, it doesn't make you less than. For the love of God, choose a key that sounds good in your voice, that you feel comfortable, that you feel confident singing in. You will be able to connect so much better with the listener when you do that. That's a side note. That's a tangent. But what I want this to be for you and for me is just a big old fat permission slip to let go of the bullshit narrative of the imposter syndrome. You belong, my friend. You belong exactly as you are. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You have everything to gain, everything to grow. If you keep learning, if you keep expanding, if you keep changing, and you keep allowing yourself to show up in the midst of that, you will have so much more fun in your life, and you will be able to keep creating and manifesting more. But if you go into situations looking for permission, if you go into situations looking for affirmation from those who have never promised it to you, if you go into situations assuming that there's a certain checklist that you need to have achieved in order to belong, you will find yourself feeling isolated and lonely and more fearful and inhibited. And that, my friend, is not something I want for you, but it's especially not something that I want for me. So let the guys carry your equipment. Step onto the stage and know that whatever happens, even if it's a hot mess, it's your hot mess, and you are offering it in the only way that you can, which is to be you. And the more you step into that and lean into that, the more permission you give for everyone else to enjoy. Not only you, but enjoy themselves too. See, this sort of thing is contagious. When you are fully yourself, you give everyone else permission to be themselves. When you are holding back, when you are making assumptions around how this ends or who belongs, etc., you are keeping other people at an arm's length. You're keeping them in a box, in a confined space. Let's get free. Let's get so free. Let's make and create and sing and move and love with the utmost freedom. All right, my friends, I love you. Thanks for spending time with me. Until the next one, peace.